So Slam Poetry Operation Team, as I said, is a child of the nowadays poets, Isimbongi Smudge. And it was established solely to cater for the performance side of poetry. Because the nowadays poets was focused on basically dealing with creative writing, making sure that poets hone their skills. Every week we come on Wednesday again between 5 and 7 to make sure that you build your skills basically. You meet other poets, you meet other storytellers, so that you can make a difference between poetry and storytelling. You know, some people come with essays that they've written at home and they say it's poetry. Some come with something that you can hear, this one is a song, you know, and they call it poetry. So for us nowadays poets, it's a way to get poets, you know, because it's debatable. Some say anyone is a poet, everyone can write poetry, as long as they write it in that structure, in that form. But at nowadays poets, we're not saying that's not true, but we're just saying that if you meet other poets, there's a Zulu expression that says, "Iche elibshelelezi." Libshelelezi ngokuhlala eduze kwamanzi. So ukuhlala ngasemanzini. So the rock becomes smooth by being close to moving water, right? So with other birds of a feather, of course, they say also flock together. So it's basically a space in nowadays poets so that you can get more poets interacting with each other, growing with each other, discussing poetry, discussing various forms and styles of poetry, and that. And so now the Slam Poetry Operation Team came out of there because we were seeing that there's a lot of opportunities for performance, and the people come to us individually. Nowadays poets, and sometimes they come to us as a community and they say they want a performer for some national something or for some municipal something.
Okay.
So, but we said, okay, instead of waiting for people to actually come to us, or instead of us hustling to go do shows that are pre-organized or pre-arranged for us, let's do our own shows. Let's look at themes and sub-themes and certain things, certain social commentary, commentaries that we can make. Like for example, Islam Poetry Operation Team had to register as an entity in itself. So if nowadays poets cannot get funding from social development and from all these social responsibility stuff, we can get it. We can form a business out of sport, whereby we make apparel, we do shows, we do events that are basically, it's still poetry, but we include music, we include discussion forums, you know, like we have a discussion forum called the Real Men Talk, where we discuss issues of masculinity, especially black masculinities. So real men talk about issues that affect men, but they talk amongst themselves. Of course, women are welcome to come, but this is it's a men's discussion forum where we discuss our issues. So it'll be a discussion, but we'll also have poetry. Slam Poetry Operation Team, we like to see it being one of the premier, one of the most organized poetry event organizing teams. The reason why we call it a team in the end is because there's lots of poetry movements, there's lots of poetry and there's lots of poets, but some of them get their ideas from us. You know, they come to the nowadays, or they come to our shows and they say, no, we can do that better, you know, which is fine. We think that is okay, but we've always wanted to have membership. We've always invited everyone to come and become a member of the Slam Poetry Operation Team. At first it was, we'll do competition, we'll do showcases, we'll do outreach shows, so that people can actually, as many people as possible can get access to quality poetry. Okay. You know, because what we will do, we'll have slam poetry workshops, and with the workshops, what we are aiming to do basically is to get people to hone their skills, to actually not just think that just because I can write, I can just stand up on stage. But maybe you can't rock the mic, you can't use the mic. Yeah. You don't know how to actually present yourself on stage. Yeah. You know, a lot of people have lots of talent, but you told the mic and they're actually closing the mouth of the mic, yeah, and they think hip-hop and poetry is the same thing. You know, yeah, they come there and they misrepresent poetry by actually coming there as niggas, you know. Bars and all that. But at the end of the day, we're not saying that you cannot be a poet and an MC at the same time. You can, but we are trying to really grow appreciation of poetry by making sure that there's quality. You know, we improve on the quality of the poet,
But
and of the performance itself, stage performance.
Why the word slam poetry? Why not just poetry?
Because slam itself, it is, we can say it's a form of poetry. I mean, of course, in the beginning we were doing a lot of shows which are slam poetry competitions. So we were doing that so that, in fact, to actually help people when they are competing, they'll actually go home and write better. We're trying to get them to be competitive about their craft, so that the craft improves. Slam, in fact, between myself and Cool Fire, who are the heads of the slam poetry operation team, we hoped that during the whole Poetry Africa interactions, we met some guy called Bob Holman, and Bob Holman is one of the pioneers of the slam poet movement. You know, I'm not counting the people like Gil Scott Heron and the others and Ginsberg, the beat poets and all that. But he gave us a workshop during one of the during one of the Poetry Africa events. Bob Holman actually came to the Bed Center, and he gave an hour-long presentation of what slam poetry is and how to actually run a slam poetry competition in the kind of form that they do at the Lyricist Lounge. Not the Lyricist Lounge, what was it called? The Slam Deaf Poetry Jam.
Yeah.
You know, so we wanted to do something kind of like a deaf poetry jam in South Africa, but making sure that it respects all the different types of poetry that is coming out of. No, we didn't. We didn't have sport by then.
Oh, so it was inspired by that.
It was inspired by Bob Holman
Okay.
and some of those poets that came to the slam poetry to the Poetry Africa. Because remember, we had always interactions between slam poetry between nowadays poets. Always the Poetry Africa committee would ask some of us, maybe it's myself, Cool Fire, Pila Mieni, Tolani, or Mtobisi, Mkadi, Menzi Maseko. They would, or Mputlani Mabufelo. They would ask maybe individually, can you suggest poets for the slam jam? They had something called a slam jam, which always happened at the Bed Center.
Yeah.
So we kind of grew tired a bit of being picked to as if I don't know how to put it in English, but it's kind of like poets for hire type of thing. You know, like we're waiting for Poetry Africa. We're waiting for an event that happens once a year.
Oh yeah.
So we said, no, we can actually do this ourselves. We can actually do our own slam jams. We can do our own competitions. We can do our own workshops. We can go to prisons. We can go to schools. We started doing that, you know, ourselves. And for us, it kind of helped us to become business people, to become people that are, you know, self-realized. We try to, you know, kind of like independent.
Okay.
Do it independently of any outside help, because can't really wait for a whole year for a poetry show. We can do our own thing. That's the basic of it. Devon poetry has come very far. It fluctuates, of course. It has many different stages of development and underdevelopment. But always it is the cohesion of the poets and the organizers that us at Slam we always work towards. As I said before, we don't mind if there's lots of different organizers of poetry shows. But the point is, and also it's not like we always seeking acknowledgement that we are the pioneers or whatever. But what we seek is that, I mean, the issue is here also. You know, when we're always asking for funds from the same group of people. We all go to arts and culture.
Yep.
We all go to NYDA or whatever, National Arts Council and all that. We're asking for the same funds. But if we're kind of like a group together, we would actually make even more money if money is the point. We will always kind of make more money with a united effort than when we are divided. Because sometimes we've had issues where Give Me 10 Mics,
Yeah.
or Poetry Society, or Numarela, all these different societies of poetry groups that came after Nowadays, that came from Nowadays. We are all writing proposals to the same people, but at the end of the day, we are doing the same thing, and we are using the same center most of the time. We're using the bed center. Sometimes we are planning a show, and someone else is doing a show at the same day on the same weekend. So it kind of defeats the purpose of the movement. It doesn't become a movement. It becomes kind of like a competition again. It becomes as if we are competing for space. And many times we've had actually meetings where we trying to say where we are trying to work on a kind of calendar, because we are trying to say people are free to have their own things, because again it becomes a business for people. Some are doing it for social development, some are doing it as a business, and we are not trying to knock anyone's hustle. We're just saying with more cohesion, with more coordinated effort, we can actually do our own festivals, like slam poetry it's like this. Almost every person that has a poetry organization in Durban came from Nowadays. They've been to Nowadays Poets. We've shared our constitution, we've shared our ideas, we've shared our plans with them. But what happens is, you see next year the same people forming their own organizations, using the same kind of ideas that they've seen.
So
maybe they improve on them or whatever.
So
maybe we need to look soul search or something. I don't know. Maybe there's something we're not doing right.
So there's clashes in terms of that. Or something.
Yeah, it's not open. It's not something that people are open about, but it becomes. You can see with the tension of, as I just mentioned, of sharing the same weekend. Someone is doing a show at Alliance Francaise. Someone is doing a show at KZNSA. But it's the same kind of show, and it's the same kind of. It's the same poets. Durban is small, May have a lot of different townships, a lot of different suburbs, and other far-flung places. We only are saying that we can create a Voltron. We used to have this comic called Voltron, where all the different powers come together to do one thing.
Okay.
That's all we've been asking for, and we've never been stingy with information. Me and Kulfire, if someone comes and they want to, for example, the fact is, people come to the bed center to actually find to express or to find poetry, to find expression to their art, and we're saying, okay, this is what we are bringing. What are you bringing? Let's share what you are bringing, and then let's work together and make it happen. That's all.
In closing, we could say that
it's one of the shows that we did.
There we go.
It was hosted by the Slam Poetry Origin team at the Bed Center. Yes.
So.
And you can go shoot those too.
Okay.
Some of our shows from last year.
So, for those who are interested in maybe engaging with poetry in Durban, who maybe are not from Durban, I think it would be safe to say they can contact Menzi.
Contact Menzi Maseko, they can contact Kulfire Hadebe, they can go to the Nowadays Poets session every Wednesday, and it's open. And I'm always pushing the Nowadays Poets to take charge of their poetry session.
Yeah.
Because Menzi can go away, but they must keep it going. How are they going to do it if they're not disciplined enough to do it?
Or if they come to the Bed Center, this is Menzi's library. It's at the bottom of the Bed Center, no?
Menzi just manages the library. It's not his.
It's not his.
Runs it, provides the books, it provides the guidance.
Yeah.
That. Some of the books are sponsored by the Department of Arts and Culture.
Ta-da!
Something for me.